Okay, good evening. Good evening. Right, so let's go. Okay, so Rashi says on Parshas Korach, and this is a Rashi which I have long been, watching me, everyone's troubled by this concept. Rashi says on Perek Tez Zayin, Posuk Chof Zayin. So the Posuk says that when just before Korach is consumed, it says, Hashem says, Suruno. Moshe, when Moshe goes there, Moshe speaks to the Eido saying, Suruno mi'al remove yourselves from these people, these wicked people, don't go anywhere near them. And it says, they went away from them, the Doson va'aviram yotzun etzovim, and Doson and Aviram walk out standing upright, Pesach ha'olem by the entrance to the tents, Unashehem uvenehem v'tapom. And they, their children, Shem, their wives, Uvenehem, and their children, v'tapom, and even the infants. And the incredibly difficult thing to understand is that this emphasis on not just those who participated in the machlokas, but also the children as well. Right? Rashi says here, come and look at how terrible machlokas is. Shari based in Shalmato ein onshin elo ad sheyovi shtei saras. Based in Shalmato, that means in this the earthly court does not punish until a person has reached physical maturity. Based in Shalmalo and in Shalmayim ad eshim shana, there's no punishment until 20 years old. The kan of daf yonki shadaim, even the youngest nursing infants were destroyed. They lost their lives. They were swallowed by the ground. And the challenge is obvious. What is it? How are we to understand? The fact that so many things that even those who seem to be innocent of the actual crime are nevertheless consumed. And you can understand it almost as I think there's a Chaim Parshas, I think, speaks about this, that it's almost a inevitable consequence of machlokas. That's the point. The point is that machlokas consumes and doesn't have any, there's no limit to it. But others have because of this problem, say that you have to look at this parsha to understand it also on a deeper level as well. So Rabbeinu Bachai goes through this, and he brings this question, there's a number of other questions as well. And he says the following. He says, he asked the question, how did they sin? Hashem the righteous, not going to do anything. How can it be not just? How can it be in this way? Why should they suffer in this way? However, if you look to understand this parsha according to the simple explanation, then you're going to struggle with all of this. Then you're going to struggle with understanding it. But he says, the view Hakabbalah Ne'emona, he says, the view and the way, he says, to understand this parsha is only through what he refers to as Kabbalah. And essentially, he bases his explanation on the concept that what was really going on here and the essence of those who participated in the rebellion were the Gilgulim, which we call Gilgul Neshamas. They were like the Neshamas, the souls, had come back of the Dor HaFloga and the Anshe Sodom, going back to the Migdal Bovel, Tara Bovel, and also the people of Sodom. It's a very, very different shot, but it has some beautiful ideas and very profound ideas. He points out a lot of striking similarities that go on between Korach and those two episodes. He says like this. He says, I'm going to give you a hint. I'll give you a hint, he says. He says, when it says with the Dor HaFloga, it says that let us build a city, a tower, and that will go up to Shemayim. And this is what they began to do. They began to act in this way as a result of this. As Hashem says, Hashem saw what they had done. As a result of them, they gathered together. That's why they end up being dispersed. The people of the city the people of Sodom gathered around the house. Ubir HaKosav, he says, Ki anshe ho'er ba'migdol heim anshe Sodom. We understand, he says, that essentially these were the same people, whether literally the same people or they were again the neshama, the souls of the Dor HaFloga that entered into the souls of the Anshe Sodom. How we understand this idea of Gilgal Neshamas, it is a deep Kabbalistic idea, but you'll see where he's going to, what we're going to be able to bring out of this. And he brings other similarities as well. That was why it says about the city. It's the city where they built the tower, and then it's the city and the people of Sodom as well. And you find that when the people of Sodom, it says that the people at the entrance of the house, hiku basanverim, they were smitten with blindness. The Tims of Anshe Sodom, Anshe Ho'ir, and it says about the Anshe Sodom, it says the Anshe Sodom, the people of Sodom, it says as well, Vayokumu lifnei Moshe, they stood up before Moshe, and it should have said Al Moshe, against Moshe. So what is this idea lifnei Moshe? He says again, the remez, the hint is that they were lifnei Moshe. They were before Moshe. They had preceded Moshe because they were, in essence, those who had lived and existed beforehand. And that's why they are called Anshe Shem. They are called people of renown, people of renown, people who are well known, people who are well known. He says, Targum Onkelos says, Vayikach is palig, separated. Korach separates himself. That's one of the explanations of Vayikach Korach. He takes himself away. Again, you see the connection to the Dor HaFloga, the people of dispersion, the separation. What is the punishment? What does it mention when it talks about the punishment? Will you blind the eyes of these people? Right? And it's like he says, somebody tries to frighten someone with something that they've already encountered, because that's what happened to Sodom. You know, the people of Sodom had their eyes blinded in this way. He says that the idea of therefore of the Adas Korach, what happens to them? Effectively, they perish from the world because that is the consequence of their actions. They end up perishing. So this is what Rabbi Bachai sets out. As I said, it's quite deep. This idea, based on Kabbalah, that they had this intrinsic connection, and they had the neshamas, the souls of those people of Sodom and the Dor HaFloga. But I saw a beautiful pshat that Rabbi Cheskel Weinfeld, who is the Rav of the Shul, I mentioned him in the past, is the Rav of the Shul, studied in Ramat Eshkol, be very big time in Chacham in Yerushalayim, and he brings out a very, very profound idea on the basis of based on this Rabbeinu Bar Chaim. We'll see. So at the beginning of the parsha, Rashi, it's a very famous Rashi. Why does it not list? Right. So we'll come back to that, Rabbeinu Bar Chaim soon. Why does it not list Ben Yaakov, right? Vayikach Korach, Ben Yitzhak, Ben Kos, Ben Levi, right? Gives the 3 generations, and it doesn't go to the 4th, right? Should go to the 4th generation, should be Yaakov. So Rashi says, just find it. Rashi says that it's the third Rashi on the parsha, the very beginning. Ben Yaakov, it doesn't mention that Ben Yaakov should pikish rachmim alatzmei, because he asked for mercy. Yaakov daven shnei zocher shmuel machlokosa, that his name shouldn't be mentioned in the connection with the machlokas of Korach, as it says in Bereshis, v'kolam al tichat kvodi daven, I shouldn't be associated with them. V'heichon nizkar shmuel Korach, but then Rashi says something a bit strange. Where does it mention Korach? Where does it mention Yaakov in connection with Korach? Right, as is the great grandfather. When it talks about the roles of the Levium, the Duchan, Divrei Hayomim, what they had to do, the Shir and everything else, there it says Ben Avi Yosef, Ben Korach, Ben Yitzhak, Ben Kos, Ben Levi, Ben Yisrael. Right? There it mentions all the generations. Korach was the son of Yitzhak, son of Kos, son of Levi, son of Yisrael. Right? Great grandfather. Anyway, yeah, right. So why? So the problem here is obvious. Orach Chaim asked this question. The Orach Chaim says that let's just try and find it. Where is the Orach Chaim? Let's see if we can find it inside. It could be. I'm not sure exactly how and whether Or maybe hold the thought, and we'll see when we bring the explanation. See if it helps. See if it helps with solve that question as well. Why it's specifically Yisrael and not Yaakov. But okay. Either way, the Orach Chaim says the following thing. He says that Rashi seems to be understanding and saying, right, that really it should have gone back to a previous generation, right? But Yaakov doesn't, and therefore was spared from this being associated. But the question is why? Why should it be that you should go to a fourth generation? Okay, and Rashi says the answer is that we see Yaakov is associated with Korach, with Korach in Divrei HaYomim. But why is it then that you should find Yaakov associated with Korach? He's not associated here, but he is associated there. It's a bit of a strange thing. It's almost like you're proving his association. Well, where do we see that he should be associated? It's a long way to go back. It's a long way to list all the generations back to Yaakov. The answer is, well, you see in Divrei HaYomim, when it talks about the roles of the Leviim, it does connect them. And therefore, that's why the question arises, you with me, why it should be connected here as well. And therefore, we see, well, Yaakov Davan, and here I don't want to be associated with the Machlokes, right? But the question is, what is the difference between there and here? What is actually the difference between them? So he suggests, or Rabbi suggests as follows, that what is Yaakov? What does Yaakov represent? Yaakov represents the midah of emes. Titain emes Yaakov. That's what Yaakov represents, the midah of truth. Okay? Now, the problem, there's an Achilles heel to emes. What is the Achilles heel to emes? Yeah? Well, Achilles heel. That's very good. Yes, that's very good. He doesn't say that. That's very... What is the weak point of emes? That really you could attribute someone like Korach to the epitome of emes. Think about it, right? You know, he comes along and says, this is not right. This is not just, right? You could say that ultimately, you could say that Korach has inbuilt within him, because he's the direct descendant of Yaakov Avinu, right? I mean, you can argue everyone's a direct descendant of Yaakov Avinu, but in the line of the Levium, he has inbuilt within him this strife. He wants to seek the truth. He wants to seek the truth, the right thing, and therefore he comes along with a claim, and his claim is, right, it's not right. Why are you taking everything? You know, my truth tells me, basically, right, that it's not appropriate. You should take all the honors. You know, your brother gets this. You know the whole story. Why is it? And everyone goes, why is it? We should have something as well. Kulam kadoshim. So he's coming along with some element of the essence of truth. So therefore, what we see is like this: is the basis of machlokas fundamentally is when a person is convinced that their truth is the only truth. That's what machlokas is, right? Let's think about it. It's just a simple idea, right? If you have a machlokas, right, what are you doing? Yeah, you're basically saying, right, there is no other view other than mine, right? You know, I'm completely right, especially machlokas shalom shem shemayim, right? I'm completely right, and no one else is relevant, and that is effectively what Korach does. And the point, of course, and the difference between Yaakov Avinu's truth and Korach's truth, which is where there is a disassociation. That's not how he's answering. He's saying like, naturally there would be an association. And we'll come back to why that association is relevant in the context of the Levium in a moment. Naturally, you would expect there to be an association. There is a separation here because Korach is fundamentally different to Yaakov Avinu. His attitude towards truth is not the same as that of Yaakov. Okay, where do we see how do we understand that? So there's a famous medrash in Bereshis where the medrash says that when mankind was created, so again, the Malachi Asharis came along and they complained, and they were in different groups. Some said he should be created, some said man should not be created, right? And it says that the different attributes, the midas, they argued either way. So Chesed and Emes, Chesed said he should be created because man is Gomel Chasodim. He can do kindness. Emes said no, he should not be created because it will talk Shekesh, Shekolosh Shkarim. Tzedek says Yivrei should be created because he does good things, righteous things. And Shalom says he should not be created because it's all about argument. What did Hashem do? Hashem notal Emes. He took the truth, and he cast it down to the ground, cast it down to the earth. Okay? And that's how it is, right? So what you have here is a setup of 2 against 2. Chesed and Tzedek say you should create man. Emes and Shalom say not to. Hashem throws Emes down to earth, okay, but Shalom still remains. Shalom is still there. The peace, the concept of Shalom says that man should not be created. So there is an explanation that the Yefei says that, okay, but now it's 2 against 1. Yeah, it's 2 against 1. So you discard the 1 because you remove the MS, but but if so, you still need to understand why is it that, what does it mean that truth is cast down to the ground? Well, then you should have cast away Shalom. What does it mean? If it's a question of numbers game, you have 2 against 1. What is the idea of truth being cast down to the ground? The Toras Chaim says, he has an introduction to his Sefer on his Perush on Shulchan Aruch, and in the introduction to that Perush, he says that the idea, the concept of MS being cast down to the ground is like this. He says that the seichel of a person's intelligence tries to, or it's difficult to find the truth in this world. It's very hard to find the truth, very hard to find the MS. And that's why the Malachim argued it's impossible for mankind to appreciate the ultimate truth of the Torah. Don't give it to them, because they're not going to appreciate it, they're not going to do the right thing. And therefore, they're going to disgrace it in that way. They're going to use their human intelligence, which can't possibly be attuned to the real, ultimate, pristine truth. And therefore, it's not appropriate they receive the truth. Says the Toras Chaim, Hashem answered, this is my wish, that truth should sprout from the earth. I want them to work out the truth through their own seichel, and thereby that's how they connect to the Torah. On the contrary, I want it to come from this world. The argument of the Malachim, the angels, was that mankind is incapable of accessing and appreciating absolute truth. Hashem's response is, that's okay. I'm going to put truth in this world and expect mankind to use what they have, the normal methods and intelligence, their own intelligence, to achieve truth to the best of their ability, even though they won't be at that level of absolute truth, so to speak, right? Toras Chaim uses this to explain how it is that when it comes to novel ideas in the Torah, Chidushei Torah, it's not that it has to be absolute emes. It has to be, you have to work as hard as you can to work out what the explanation is, what the chiddush is, based on your understanding of what it means. And what that means is like this: is that when Shalom argues, the concept of peace argues that mankind should not be created, it's because the midah of Shalom says people always argue. The phrase used measures kole katota, they all argue, they all do is fight. Why? Because everyone thinks that they're right. Their truth is only correct. Like we said, that's what machlokas is. I'm right and there's no space for anyone else. But Emes comes along, having been cast down to this earth, and said there is a concept of relative truth. I can have my perspective, I can also appreciate yours. You're trying to work it out to the best of your ability as well. We're each trying to work out, we're each trying to find a way to meet in the middle. And it's true, it may not be the absolute truth. We may never know what the absolute truth is, but we're doing our best, honestly, to work it out. And this is how we have this idea, people are not the same, therefore they have different views, different perspectives. That's how it is. So you can have an argument that's not a feud, it's not a full-out machlokas. I can disagree with you, but I can appreciate the fact that there is a relative aspect to truth in this sense. And that's how you don't have contradiction to the concept of peace. That's the resolution of peace. And the question was, how do you resolve, and why is it that truth is cast down to this world, right? How does that resolve the problem of man's creation? Shalom is still arguing the concept of peace, that mankind should not be created because all they do is fight. The answer is no. If truth is in this world, right, then that means that there's an ability to have, if you like, appreciate relative truth. Yeah, that's a bit of a dangerous word because it doesn't mean everything is therefore true, right? It's not right, but it means I can appreciate where I am and I can appreciate where you are. We're both trying to approach this from different perspectives, and therefore that resolves the issue of of always arguing as well, which is the concern that man is anti-peace. Doesn't have to be anti-peace, doesn't have to be anti-shalom. Says Rabbi, with this we can understand the difference between Korach and Yaakov. Korach, right, didn't believe in the idea of Vatash Emes Arza, that truth being on this land, on this earth, and where there is this sense of relativity, right? That truth is, I can have my perspective and you can have your perspective, we can meet in the middle, right? He did not appreciate that, and he felt that there is only absolute truth. So he was the inheritor of Yaakov in that way, right? Which resolves the idea of why it was natural that Yaakov should be mentioned in connection with Korach, despite being his ultimate ancestor many generations before, because he was, in that sense, following Yaakov's middle of truth. But the mistake was he didn't appreciate how truth is meant to be applied on this earth, right? So where does he end up? Underground. It's just, you understand? He ends up underground because he can't be Arza. He doesn't get how you're meant to live together, right? He stands up, he epitomizes machlokus, right? That's the Mishnah in Avos, machlokus. He epitomizes the worst aspects of quote unquote truth when they lead to the inability to resolve a debate, to resolve a machlokus. Okay, now Yaakov Avinu, his midah of truth is a synthesis between Avraham and Yitzchak. So Avraham is Chesed and Yitzchak is Gevurah, and Yaakov is this idea. Again, it's quite Pi Kabbalah, but the idea of Tiferes. The midah of Tiferes is a mixture of Chesed and Gevurah. It's a synthesis. That's what Yaakov is able to do. He's the third, the third, and Yitzchak is that sense of Gevurah of strength and din, perhaps. Then Avraham Avinu, and Avraham is Chesed. Yaakov Avinu is able to mold the two together. Okay, which he does through the application of truth in the right way, emes in the right way, right? So, where is Yaakov associated with Korach? Okay, to come back to that point, where al haduchon, when the Leviim sing Shira. What is a Shira? A Shira, by definition, a song only works if there's a synthesis. Otherwise, it's not. If each person in the orchestra, right, decides, that's why I said it's worth holding on to this. It's a beautiful idea. So if each person in the orchestra, right, kind of like wants to just play their notes, this is my MS, this is my truth. I have my, I have my trombone, or I have my snare drum, right, or my recorder, and I will make as much noise as I can on my instrument. MS, mine, I don't care about you, right? What are you left with? Nothing. No sound, no beauty, nothing at all, okay? Music is, by definition, the combination of different tones, right? And that's why Yaakov Avinu is mentioned in connection with Korach when Divrei Hayomim talks about the Leviim who sang Al Haduchon, because that's the rectification of Korach's mistake. And think about it. He doesn't mention this, but it seems obvious. The sons of Korach, the Bnei Korach, they're the ones also who rectify Korach's mistake. What do? What do they do? This idea that they're there and they're singing Shira and they write some of Tehillim, right? It fits so beautifully because they're able to appreciate and rectify this mistake of their father and say, no, we stand for MS, but we stand for MS in a Yaakov Avinu's type of MS, right? Now, we're gonna just bring this all together. So he goes to other points as well, which I think we don't have much time to go through. He talks about this is why he says the Toras features so prominently in the parsha. There's 2 episodes with the Toras. One is the Toras is they have to bring the pans, which end up being making them which is a negative thing, and then afterwards the Toras is brought, which saves them, right? So the idea again is the same thing. What music achieves in sound, Keteris achieves in smell. Keteris is the same thing, right? You've got the mixture of the 15 different Samamonim, including those with a bad smell, right? So it's the same idea. Korach cannot appreciate the synthesis, okay? And therefore, the Keteris, for him, is negative. It's destructive. Whereas for Moshe Rabbeinu, all right, and Aaron, the Keteris is positive, because it can achieve a synthesis. It's the same idea. When the emes is on the ground, the eretz titzma, right? So how does this relate, and how does this resolve the Rabbeinu Bachai and the idea of the connection to Sodom and Dara Floga? So when it comes to the Dara Floga, what did they do? What did they do wrong? There is a Rashbam. The Rashbam says there are different explanations of what exactly they did wrong, but the Rashbam says differently to Rashi in Parshas Noach, and he says that they essentially underestimated their own abilities. They wanted to live a sheltered life. That's what they wanted. They didn't want to be spread out in the world. They wanted to effectively only live in a very tight space together. And according to the Rashbam, the separation was not a punishment. It was a message in that sense. It was a message to mankind. I want you to spread out. I want you to be able to live lives where you appreciate each other's differences. I don't want you to be, I don't want you all to be the same. Now, the people of Sodom then go to the opposite, if you like, their reaction to that. And what do? They are the ultimate opposite. They're the complete opposite of the Dar Vloga. They say, I'm in it for myself. Yeshem is in Midas Sodom. I'm just in this for myself. I'm in this life completely for myself. I will maximize everything that I can get in life. If someone doesn't have something, I don't have to give them tzedakah because that's how they're poor. That's obviously the way they're supposed to be. I don't have to. There's no sensitivity towards anyone else. It's all about my own independent potential. It's the opposite extreme of everyone else being the same. Everyone being completely the same as it was with the Tower of Babel. So you have, if you like, these two extremes. You have the two extremes. You have the Dor HaFloga, the generation of Migdal Bovel, who believe in not unity, uniformity. We all have to be exactly the same, speak the same language, act in the same way, and you end up with them building the tower, right? The people of Sodom are the opposite extreme, right? We can't join together at all. It's impossible. How can two people ever join together? And therefore that leads to the extreme cruelty of Sodom, where everyone's persecuted. I'm only into myself. I'm looking at myself. I don't care. Someone poor comes to town, all the Midrashim, right? That's their problem. Don't do with me, right? What do Korach do? The Korach, they fall back. They see basically that Sodom has failed. It's like a pendulum. It swings backwards and forwards. They see that the individuality of Sodom has failed. So they try and push it back to the Dor HaFloga, the generation of the HaFloga. What do they say? Kol ha'eder, kol ha'kedoshim. Everyone's holy. Yeah. Why should hierarchy? We're all together. We're all together. We can all be as holy as each other. There's no such thing. Communism. We'll be we're all equal, right? That's the idea, right? Yeah. Some animals more equal than others. This is the idea. This is what they try to resurrect, if you like, that approach of the Migdal Bovel, the Tower of Bovel, that we all join together, we all achieve this, and that's the only way. We all deserve equal levels of holiness through coming together. The message that is sent to them, and the message of Korach being swallowed up by the earth, is that effectively both approaches are wrong. That extreme individuality, we're all in it for ourselves and no one else is relevant, is wrong. And so is the idea, right? So is the idea that we can only succeed if we're all exactly the same. We all live together in exactly the same way and we behave in the same way, we all reach the same level. That also is not possible, right? The only correct pathway and the only way to resolve and live in a world of machlokas, yet have truth, because we live in a world where it is impossible to achieve. We are not able to achieve, we're not able to connect with absolute truth, which was what the Malachim said. That's why you shouldn't give them the Torah, because they can't connect, they can't achieve absolute truth. The answer is, Hashem says, truth is in this world. What you're meant to do is do your utmost to strive to achieve truth, right? Strive to try and achieve the emes, the truth, but understand that does not mean that you can't live in a world where others disagree with you. Learn how to disagree properly. Learn how to understand that that the concept of emes that Yaakov stands for, not the concept of emes that Korach stands for, right, is one in which I have space. We can have synthesis. You can do this, I can do this. You can be higher than me in this direction, and that's okay. And Korach, I'll be on the duchen, I'll be singing with the Levium, and that's okay. And I don't need to be. We have to all be on that idea that like the generation of the Tower of Babel, we have to all be on that level. Otherwise, it's all irrelevant. Yeah, that's the message of Korach. I think it's a beautiful piece, and it's a bit unusual thing that I've just really taken you through this one piece. But there are so many ideas here, so many profound messages about what machlokes is, what truth is, and how we can try and live our lives in the best possible way and really learn from the episode of Korach. So thank you all. Like next week, as I'm in Poland, but there is shir next week. There is a parsha next week. Guest shir given by Chaim Birnbaum. Should be fantastic. So please do join. Normal time, Mitzvah Hashem. At 8 o'clock. Okay. Have a very good evening and a good Shabbos.
Lovely mahalach.
Okay, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Take care. Thank you for joining.